Hi. It's been a minute, but I'm trying. Also, this is what I physically look like, so that's cool. Oh, I have to do the clap. Folks, okay, Scott Wozniak, better known as Scott the Woz, is one of the greatest YouTubers of all time. I know that's a really bold claim, but I stand by it, and I mean it. It's hard to put into words exactly what makes him so special, but at the same time, I feel like I could just rant about him for hours on end. So I'm now going to do that. If you're already a fan of Scott the Woz, I hope that we can just sort of gush about him together. If you've never heard of Scott, I hope maybe I can convince you to give his videos a try, see how they fit on. If you hate Scott, I hate you and I curse upon your family 1,000 years of pain and dismay. But hear me out, because I might be able to convince you to think differently about his videos. These are all clear goals that I'm setting, mostly to give the sense that there's actually a reason for me to make this video, which there isn't. I just really want to gush about Scott. It's a really self-indulgent video, so just, go along with me. Okay, I understand that may be the most wild header for a video about an internet gamer man that you've ever seen, but I think if we're going to explore why Scott is so good, we need to explain and understand what it is he's so good at. Scott generally does game reviews and gamer-related content, whether that be a review of a specific game, or an overview of a type of console, a comparison of different consoles, a weird niche game type, etc., etc. All game-related stuff, for the most part, other than skits, which we'll get to later. This is a genre that is storied, like it has a very storied history, and I'm gonna mostly just skip over it for the sake of brevity. This is a genre that is everywhere within YouTube. You can walk 30 feet into the cold abyss of that hell site, and you will find a gamer man, from Austin Eruption to Peanut Butter Gamer to John or whoever. There's no shortage of them, all the way to old gods like AVGN, which are still active. Now, for the sake of brevity, once again, let's just refer to Angry Video Game Nerd, AVGN, as the originator / populator of the genre, which is a wild thing to say because I think it implies that he just fucked so much that all of his offspring are now populating YouTube. So AVGN is a character played by James Rolfe, who basically plays shitty video games and gets mad and screams things like piss and shit at the camera. This created a huge boom on YouTube and other sites similar of people yelling angrily at shitty video games. And don't get it twisted, I really like AVGN. I think his videos hold up really well, just due to how in touch and defined that character of AVGN is. It's a lot like how old Filthy Frank videos kind of hold up pretty well. So what the fuck does this have to do with Scott? Well, in my opinion, Scott kind of perfected this genre in a strange way. Although his opinions expressed are entirely his own, much like AVGN, Scott uses the vehicle of the Scott the Woz character to express them creatively and in interesting new ways. Rather than a straightforward review, the freedom of having this established character allows him to tap into a realm of creative possibilities that would be otherwise impossible or too awkward without. This character is so well defined, it's almost accurately a polar opposite to AVGN's character. He will craft running jokes centered around this character, most infamously, say, his virginity.
With Valentine's Day coming up, virginity is out of the spotlight, so let's celebrate by playing a game focused entirely on... Oh shit, it's pronounced breast? I always thought it was pronounced beans.
He's able to tell compelling jokes, tell stories around this character, but also imbue a genuine sense of his own opinions and beliefs into it, and it's that sincerity that I think sets him apart from his predecessors. Scott, the character, will throw chibi, robo, whiplash, ziplash, badishklash into a toilet. Scott the person wouldn't, probably, but it's that kind of heightened reality that's created with the Scott the Woz character that allows for his opinion to be reinforced rather than just using the character as a cheap one-off joke or as a vehicle to say fuck and shit through. This seems like fairly obvious stuff. Every YouTuber has a character to a certain extent like that, but again, I think that Scott just really understands the limitations and possibilities of using a character to that extent in order order to make his reviews not only more enjoyable, but strangely, in a workaround way, more sincere. Okay, we can't talk about Scott as a character without addressing perhaps Scott's greatest strength, his ability to write comedy. I mean this with no exaggeration. Scott may be one of the most talented comedy writers I have ever seen. Comedy is a fairly difficult thing to analyze objectively. What's funny for you is not always funny for someone else. But I think to a certain extent, whether you find his jokes funny or not, we can sort of take a step back and appreciate the craft that goes into them. His videos are a lot like microscopic renditions of an episode of Arrested Development. Every one-off line probably will end up coming back in a later part of the video, building upon the groundwork laid before. And these jokes feel really natural, both in tone and pacing. Scott's able to transition from a genuine critique on what he's talking about to a totally comedic bit very smoothly. Watching Scott's videos is a lot like being carried down a gentle river. This natural ebb and flow of comedy and genuine critique is what makes his videos feel so genuine and heartfelt and personal. It's like a beautiful ride of humor reinforcing his opinions that only he could deliver just because of how talented he is at it. Okay, this one's a bit strange, but I think it's also kind of the most important one. I am convinced that Scott is not a human, but more a machine man. The quality to quantity ratio that Scott has is impeccable. It is truly astounding. It's potentially the best in all of YouTube. Every single week, he uploads a video of the same quality as the last, oftentimes better and better each time. I don't understand how he can do that. Sometimes he'll release a 10-minute video about a game review, or a 40-minute video comparing PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, and they both feel on the same level of quality, despite the insane difference in length, but the same amount of production time. I think this is aided because Scott really knows when to take breaks. After a particularly large and draining project, he'll take about a month off or so, and this really helps him not break his limitations and just kind of relax, avoid burnout. You may not know exactly what goes into making a YouTube video, and that's totally fine and understandable. I've made about 4 now, and I don't feel anywhere near qualified to talk about this, but I'm going to anyways because it's a really impressive feat on his part. Every single week, Scott has to come up with a new topic of discussion, something that he feels confident he can make a compelling video in, and something that he would genuinely want to talk about. This is insanely difficult. I will sometimes sit there for months going through different ideas, and none of them do I feel that level of confidence to actually go ahead and make a video about. I have so many scrapped ideas because I just don't think they would be good videos from me. Yet somehow, Scott always has something. After that, Scott will then have to write a script. This will go through multiple drafts. It has to, with how clean, concise, and smooth his videos are. Next, you got filming. This is where Scott's dedication, it takes center stage. He takes absolutely no shortcuts. This short 5-second gag, for example.
With these portable home consoles, I never have to go indoors ever again!
I still believe that. Look what just happened. Can't rain indoors. The outside's amazing. That's right. F you, house.
He moves his entire set outside, creates a makeshift contraption to dump water on his head, sets up the shot, gets himself soaked. No retakes being possible, at the very least being very difficult to do. And all of that for something that appears in the video for like 5 seconds. Even when it comes down to simple things like shots of the games and consoles he's speaking of, they're framed very carefully and pleasantly when he could easily use shortcuts like still images, cut-ins, etc. Even something as simple as changing a camera angle takes a pretty significant amount of time, and yet Scott will go through all of those lengths for the most minute of detail. Then you got editing, which for me is personally the longest part of any video. I'm really bad at it. Scott's editing is super slick, concise. His comedic timing is absolutely impeccable. No doubt this is a skill he's honed over years and something that will come naturally with a lot of practice, but it's still super impressive. In certain videos, he'll even have pretty basic visual effects and so on that only add to his workload. Editing my last video, which ended up being around 30 minutes, took almost a full month for me. And yes, I do suck at it and I'm a complete beginner, but still, I'm in awe of how he's able to do it. And again, all of this in less than a week, every week, save for his breaks. I can't think of a lot of people that do this. I can think of a lot of YouTubers that upload weekly, but to this extent of quality, I think he's king in that regard. Most YouTubers of his size would have probably hired an editor at this point, just to upkeep the quality, but Scott still just handles everything himself, and he fucking kills it. This man is a machine. This is where I want to talk about the most abstract thing to close this video out. Things that I can't point to examples for and concretely say, there, that's him, officer. Good Scott. Scott, for me, encapsulates an energy of passion that I really see rarely on this site. Some of my favorite videos he's ever done are a series of short skits completely unrelated to his normal gaming content. They're not only hilarious, they remind me of the videos that I would make with my friends in attics when I was 10 or 11.
And if things get out of hand, that's where our trusty chaperone enters the picture. He's been violently conditioned to resist all forms of alcohol, drugs, violence, and sex, and most importantly, sex.
It really wasn't that difficult. A lot of my training carried over. Funeral, school dances, tomato, tomato.
So what's the plan here? I was thinking we could do some fun activities, like we could stand up against the wall and just wait for somebody to talk to us.
But why do so many people like school dances? The way I see it, you can't spell homecoming without alcohol poisoning.
No!
The acting is horrible, but that adds a lot of the charm to it. It's so clearly something that Scott and his friends are making because they want to make it. The passion can't help but be contagious. Scott only makes what he wants to make, and it's a very commendable trait to have in the modern landscape of YouTube. Everyone in the gaming community is talking about The Last of Us 2. Fuck you, here's a video about Gex. Somehow, all of his videos feel so necessary. Did we really need like 4 videos about Mario Kart 8? I don't know, but you watch all of his and he makes a really compelling case for them. Every video feels like it has something to say, something only Scott could say. Look at his newest video on Chibi Robo Ziplash. It's a game literally no one heard about outside of the in-jokes that he started, and yet it ends up pulling in millions of views and ends up being one of his most creative and fulfilling projects. One of my personal favorite videos of his as well is his video on portable home gaming. It's not particularly special in the grand scheme of his work, but I think it really exemplifies the best parts of Scott. It's a lot about why I love him. If you want to watch just a single Scott video to get an idea for what he's like, this is the one that I recommend. His work ethic and his slick design shine through in this one. Very clearly something he wanted to make because he wanted to make it. No one asked for a video about portable home consoles, but he wanted to do it. It's an absurd dedication to craft for something so obscure. Coming to the close here, I think it's pretty obvious to see that I didn't have much of a point making this video, or really an end goal of any kind in mind. Which is fine, I own up to that, because much like Scott, I want to make videos that I want to make because I want to make them. This kind of felt important to me. I felt like I needed to just sort of vent. Vent's a bad word, it implies negative. To just sort of gush about Scott in my own voice, you know? Scott's an inspiration to me. His content constantly amazes me and pushes me to do better in my own creative endeavors. I felt a deep need to just yell at someone, anyone, and in this case, a camera stacked on a bunch of books, about all of this. So I thank you for listening and humoring me in this very self-indulgent exercise, because I want this to be what YouTube is about, at least in this little circle we find ourselves in. Passion, being passionate about things, sharing that passion, and supporting others' passion for one another. And that's what Scott stands for me. I don't have an outro. Bye.